They say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. But what if that fury doesn't explode right away? What if it waits, patiently, quietly, hiding behind soft smiles and daily routines, growing stronger with every memory, until one day it erupts, not in fire, but in cold, calculated destruction. This is the story of Pascal, a man who thought he had left the past behind, a man who built a new life, only to watch it all come crashing down in the most unexpected, heartbreaking way. And it all started with a phone call I wasn't prepared for. I had just landed in the United States for the very first time. The excitement of being in a new country was bubbling under my skin. The air felt different. The streets, the people, the pace. It was like stepping into another world. But more than anything, I was eager to reconnect with old friends. Friends who had left Africa more than 2 decades ago to chase new dreams in America. Among all the faces I hoped to see again, there was one name that made my heart skip a beat. Pascal. I hadn't seen him in years, but the memories were still sharp. Pascal wasn't just an old friend, he was unforgettable. Back in the day, he was the kind of man who made an entrance, always. His presence was magnetic, like he carried the sun on his shoulders, handsome, articulate, full of charm, and that smile, it could light up the darkest room. Wherever Pascal went, energy followed. He was the guy everyone wanted to be around. And the ladies, oh, they adored him. In fact, the office gossip was always buzzing with rumors about his flings, even with women who were already taken. But somehow, he always managed to stay above the drama, or so we thought. After some digging, I finally got his number. I waited until I'd settled in, shook off some of the jet lag, and called. No answer. So I left a message, hoping he'd get back to me. Hours passed. I dozed off, still exhausted from the 14-hour flight. My body felt heavy, my mind floating somewhere between sleep and wakefulness. And then, my phone buzzed, relentlessly. I groggily reached for it, and to my surprise, it was Pascal. But the voice I heard wasn't the Pascal I remembered. This voice was hollow, weighed down, tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. I asked how he was doing, where he was living now, expecting to hear stories of success, maybe even some humble bragging. What he said next stopped me cold. He told me he had been separated for years, that he had lost his family, that he was living in a homeless shelter in Atlanta. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart sank. This was the same Pascal who once had everything going for him. Now, living in a shelter, alone, I struggled to piece it together. I had so many questions. How? Why? What happened? I pressed him for answers. At first, he spoke slowly, carefully, then more openly. As he began to describe the sacrifices he had made, the years he gave, the dreams he shelved, something didn't add up. His story painted him as the victim, and I couldn't help but wonder, Was he telling the full truth? My mind raced back to a chapter we both knew all too well, and a single name came to the surface: Cynthia. You see, years ago, Pascal had been in a relationship with Cynthia, a beautiful, radiant woman who worked with us. She was everything you'd want in a partner: warm, loyal, and head over heels in love with him. Their relationship was no secret. People in the office talked about wedding bells and happily ever afters. Then, a few months before their 1-year anniversary, everything changed. That's when Lolly joined the company. Lolly was a force, strikingly attractive, sharp as a tack, and fiercely confident. She didn't just enter a room, she owned it. And of course, she caught Pascal's eye almost instantly. The flirtation was subtle at first. Glances, small talk. Then it escalated. Pascal, the man who once looked at Cynthia like she was his whole world, suddenly seemed distant, cold. And just like that, he ended it. Cynthia was blindsided. She cried endlessly, her pride shattered, her heart in pieces. Eventually, she left the company, unable to bear the shame of being discarded so publicly. But even as she walked away, she was carrying something far heavier than heartbreak. A few months later, whispers began to circulate. First in hushed tones, then louder. Cynthia had been pregnant when Pascal left her, and when he broke things off, he told her to terminate the pregnancy. But she refused. Instead, she carried on, alone, until the baby was 6 months in. That's when the pressure from her family became too much. They urged her to go back, to fight for her dignity, to demand a future for her child. But Pascal had moved on. He was deep in love with Lolly now, or so he claimed. When Cynthia approached him again, he shut her down, coldly, said he wanted no part in the child's life. That was the moment Cynthia stopped being the girl who loved Pascal and became the woman who would never forget what he did to her. Instead of begging, she strategized. She went to his family. She told them everything. Some leaned in with sympathy. Others, they cast their judgment like stones. She bore it all in silence, not a word, not a tear. Then she moved to his friends, his co-workers. One by one, they turned their eyes onto Pascal, and with voices he could not escape, they began to ask the questions he never wanted to answer. Eventually, the pressure broke him. Pascal dumped Lolly. He wrote her a long apology, dripping with remorse. Lolly, broken-hearted, stepped aside. Pascal returned to Cynthia, and they rushed into marriage. A week later, she gave birth to a baby boy. For a moment, peace returned. They were a family now, but life had other plans. A few years later, unbeknownst to Pascal, Lolly's new boyfriend became the HR director at his company. When downsizing began, Pascal's name was first on the list. Just like that, he was out of a job. He tried to stay strong, but before he could recover, tragedy struck. Their baby boy fell gravely ill. Medical bills mounted, options ran out, and Pascal, helpless, jobless, had to watch his own child die. Cynthia was inconsolable, but in her eyes there was no confusion. She blamed Pascal, blamed his choices, blamed the affair that cost him his job, blamed him for everything. From that day on, something in her snapped. And then, like a break in the clouds, fortune smiled. Pascal won the US visa lottery for the first time in years. He felt hope. They sold everything, borrowed from friends, packed their lives into suitcases, and flew to America. Pascal believed this was their fresh start, and at first, it was. He took on every job he could find, cleaning, night shifts, delivery work, all while studying for his master's degree. When their daughter was born, he encouraged Cynthia to pursue nursing, and she agreed. While she studied, he juggled work and childcare. Exhausted but optimistic, he believed it would all be worth it. But what he didn't know was that Cynthia was building something else. Not a future with him, but a future without him. Once she became a licensed nurse and landed a well-paying job, everything changed. The warmth disappeared. The appreciation vanished. In its place, contempt, insults.
You're a burden. You're not a man. Why am I still taking care of you?
She said it loudly, repeatedly, in front of the children. And slowly, they began to turn against their father. The final blow came after years of sacrifice. One day, worn down by exhaustion, Pascal suffered a stroke. You'd think this was the moment Cynthia would soften, return to compassion. But instead, she twisted the knife. She ridiculed him, mocked his weakness, called him useless in front of the kids, treated him as a failure every single day. And when he finally regained his strength, she delivered the ultimatum: get a job or get out. He tried, day after day, door to door, applications, prayers. But then, one evening, Pascal returned home to find his belongings scattered on the front lawn. Clothes, shoes, documents, all under the setting sun. Cynthia had locked him out, the same way he once left her out in the cold. Was she right? Or did she go too far? Some say revenge is justice in disguise. Others say it only creates more pain. But one thing is certain: never underestimate a woman who was once broken. Because when she rises, she may just burn everything in her path. What do you think? Did Pascal deserve what he got? Or was Cynthia wrong to deliver that final blow?